So she wanted to get a Dyson, like a Dyson hair dryer. And then we went over to look at it, I think at Harbourfront, and we realized that it costs like $600 at the time. Jesus, man, like this is crazy expensive. What are they really doing with it? I was trying to see how we could maybe develop a prototype to see if we could get the same level of airflow and performance, but at a lower form factor.
So first on idea validation, how did you go about doing that? Yeah.
Honestly, the most amount of validation we got was when we used to meet people. We have those 10, 15 women in front of us who are ready to tell us, give us their time, that what they want. So we started with them.
Kickstarter campaign and the process of actually finding who your customer is or was and where they are located. So tell us a bit about that.
If you want to go in without having any professional help, it's close to impossible to raise money. I think only about 30-40% of projects that are listed even get funded. I had sold products on Amazon for my company previously that I was working for. They take a large cut of the overall product, FBA fee,
Amazon fee.
Yeah, we were putting our savings into this. Whatever came in kind of went out there initially. And so we figured, A, 80% of our customers are in the US. Let's start selling in the US. B, we set up a Shopify store. And then we started running meta ads once the product was out. Our operational aspect of the backend is kind of where you make money. We want to continually, of course, improve and add new products, but also be very particular about how we're managing our costs and how we're extracting money out of the business without leaving anything on the table.
But before we start off, maybe if you could just introduce yourself and your respective backgrounds, that'll be a good place to start.
I will let Sanya go first.
Yeah. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Sanya and really happy to be here. I grew up in India, came to Singapore around 8 years ago. I studied finance, accounting and business. And after that, I worked in consulting for around 3 years. Post that, I'm currently working in a finance role in a Fortune 500 company. Something about me that actually made me kind of look towards entrepreneurship was that around 3 years ago, I, along with my mom, started like a small home-based business in India. It used to be completely offline, and then we took it online. And once we took it online, we saw the power of social media, and we could reach like more than 1,000 people in India, including some corporates. So it's like a very small, customized salt lamp business. And that gave me kind of initial insights to what entrepreneurship is and the power of social media at the current date, where you can literally be at your home and just reach 100 people that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in India as well. I came here 9 years ago to study in the US. I did engineering. Then after I graduated, I worked at a American biomedical company. I was designing parts and products for them. And then I kind of like product management. So I moved over into hardware product management. So I essentially look at new product development, commercialization, and then more recently, like managing P&L and growth for a category of products. So like a brand management role, but more product related for hardware products essentially. So it's not the typical software product management. Arrived at this by accident. I think kind of why we did Vayu or how this happened is because I developed products for a Singaporean company I worked for, and then we launched them over a period of a year in the US. That was the primary market. And then secondary and tertiary markets were Europe and Australia. And those products did really well, and they were completely my idea. And was able to convince people internally to commercialize those. Since those did well, I was like, hey, if I can do this for someone and make them millions, maybe if we have an idea that we can commercialize, maybe we can at least make a few 100,000.
We haven't reached that.
Yeah, we haven't reached that, but maybe someday. But so that's kind of how my background is. Consumer electronics and hardware products is kind of where I've been in and around 5-6 years now.
That's great to know, and also very interesting because I feel like both of you are very well set up to do what you're currently doing, right? So Sanya, you mentioned that you essentially ran a D2C business with your mom, and that's where you understood the power of e-commerce and social media in general. And then Adhiraj, yourself with your background, you knew the product operational side of things, how are things made, and what can drive value. So you guys are pretty well set up to do this. My question here is, you mentioned that you stumbled upon this by accident. So tell us a little bit more about that. Where did you get this idea from? Why specifically this sort of product in the market?
Right.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Sanya just graduated, and I think when you graduate, you want to buy all the things that you couldn't when you were a kid. So she wanted to get a Dyson, like a Dyson hair dryer. And then we went over to look at it, I think at Harbourfront, and we realized that it costs like $600 at the time. I think it's a lot lower now because there's competition.
That time it was like one of the only two products that they were selling, like the hair dryer and the air wrap.
The hair wrap. Yeah, and like the hair dryer and the air wrap, which is a multi-styler. And so we kind of I was like, Jesus, man, like this is crazy expensive. What are they really doing with it?
Yeah.
When I looked into it, I think Sanya was able to get a Dyson at that time with the credit card promotion that was happening,
Yeah.
but it still stayed in our at the back of our heads.
Yeah.
Few months later, I think working on something where I came across an article about how the hairdryer was different in terms of what technologies it was using. So
Hmm.
if we take a minute to sort of understand that
Yeah.
the main differentiation that the Dyson has over conventional hair dryers is not so much the design and the attachments. Most of the attachments already existed in one form or the other. But the main differentiation was in fact the motor that they were using, the Dyson digital motor, which is their main USP, which is something that they use across all their products. So it's a very compact, low form factor, but really high output, high speed motor, brushless motor.
Hmm.
To describe it. And so they were one of the first to put a brushless motor into a hair dryer, which allows you to style at relatively lower heat because the airflow makes up for the lack of you could say styling power. So
Okay.
higher airflow means lower heat, and therefore when you style your hair, you can do it at a point where your hair doesn't get brittle or damaged. And
Like in simple women terms, like
Yeah.
if you're using really, really high heat to dry your
Yeah.
hair, you think your hair are gonna get dried faster because the heat is so high.
yeah,
On
Hmm.
contrary to that, we just have higher air and lower heat. So because of the
Hmm.
strong airflow, the drying happens faster. So you
Yeah.
technically think that there's not much difference, but
hmm,
the amount of heat is so low that the hair damage is significantly
lesser.
reduced. And
Hmm.
if there's a woman in a country like Singapore where it's so hot, you're gonna end
Hmm.
up washing your hair almost every day.
Yeah.
So that 10 minutes of time that you, maybe not 10 minutes, you end up saving like half an hour of time. I think that really compounds and that really
Hmm.
adds value to a woman's life because it's really a headache to dry your hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's where the idea came from. And
And then, like, yeah, I mean, I was trying to see how we could maybe develop a prototype to see if we could get the same level of airflow and performance, but at a lower form factor.
Hmm.
So, look, maybe not a lower form factor, but at a lower price. At the same time, we realized that Dyson had two products. They had a hairdryer and a multi-styler,
yeah,
and
Hmm.
both did independent, like, different things. So the hairdryer had better airflow, but it didn't have all the attachments. And then the multi-styler had less airflow, but it had all the attachments. More notably, the curlers that allows you to curl your hair with the coanda effect without
Hmm.
using a
Yeah.
heated round brush.
Yeah.
And so we felt if we could like marry those two, and we could give like a mixture of both the products, it would be a great hero product.
yeah.
Um,
So
that
in another simple way to say it,
Yeah.
like you don't need to spend 600 on the other, 500 on the other. Instead, you just buy one product
yeah
which gives you all five attachments that are more commonly used by women.
Hmm.
And this didn't come just from my feedback. We spoke to over
yeah
like 100 people, different geographies, just asked them
Hmm.
for casually asked them for their opinions, and that's
Hmm.
how we realized that actually these five attachments
hmm,
in this cost price is enough. But
Hmm.
again, we realize we don't just want to differentiate on the attachments or the price. Like we don't want people to be like, this is a cheaper
yeah
version, so
it's not a
let's
dupe.
pick
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
So we thought more about it. I mean, I personally cannot give a lot of input about the engineering side of it, but I can just say that, hey, I like it to be lighter. Because if you're
Hmm.
using a hair dryer that's heavy, that's like 2 kgs,
Hmm.
it's just heavy, right? You don't want your
Yeah.
hair drying to be a workout. So I just
Yeah.
gave a random opinion that can it somewhere be a little lighter because it's too heavy. And then we realized that it can be like
yeah,
my
yeah.
my feedback was taken into
Hmm.
consideration, and we have it around like half,
It's
no,
half a
one
pound.
one third.
It's half a pound, and the
Yeah.
Dyson's about 2.2 pounds. So about a
So
kilogram
Okay.
versus about 300 grams. So it's a third of the weight.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a
So
lot of, it's very chaotic at the
yeah.
beginning. You can imagine how
Yeah.
we're going about it because we're like,
Yeah.
hey, this is a good pain point, but hey, what would this product really look like? How
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
attachments? And then we talk to people, what would you want this to look like? What color would you want it to be? What attachments would you want it
Hmm.
to have? And so we kind
Hmm.
of gathered requirements from what
Hmm.
we thought would be our end users.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we kind of had an idea. And this is exactly how we do product development, like
Yeah.
in like what I do for work essentially.
Yeah.
And you figure out what you want to build first, and then you see how feasible it is at the price point that you need to sell it at.
Yeah.
And so once those requirements, I think once the pain point is understood, then the requirements were gathered. I think the weight is
Yeah.
another thing, attachments, what kind of airflow we'd need, what kind of form factor we'd need. We went about like sketching it out. So I sketched what it would look like, and then um, again with sourcing, you need to find sort of factories who would be able to support you.
Hmm.
Um, there's two kinds of product development if we want to go into that edge, right? There's OEM and ODM. OEM
Yep.
for electronics, right, basically means you take a product that's readily available, you don't really change much about it, you white label it and you sell it.
Yeah, you slap
um,
your brand on it
yeah,
and
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So most of the products you see Shopee, Lazada, where they're selling like foot massagers or like
yeah,
Hair
trimmers, or
dryers.
even a lot of hair
Yeah.
dryers. I mean, like a lot of
yeah,
products, most electronics, in fact, are OEM because there's
yeah,
certain factories which have economies of scale, and therefore they can produce these products at relatively decent quality at a very
yeah,
low price. And so
yeah,
the idea is, how do you most effectively sell it to the end customer without with minimizing your
yeah,
CAC, acquisition cost.
yeah,
That's one. The second one is ODM, which is original design and manufacture. So if your product
yeah.
doesn't exist in the real world, you got to figure out how to commercialize it, while spending the least amount of money, because hardware
Hmm.
product development is expensive. It's not like software where you can just pay for the server
Yeah,
and
yeah,
code it over a weekend. This takes time. There's certifications, as it's a
correct,
process to go about it.
correct.
So yeah, that's kind of how the idea went. Then we went around and found, we screened manufacturers who were already producing hair dryers and other beauty products, um, for larger brands. And then
Yeah.
they're quite open. If you tell them, this is my design, this is my blueprint, this is what I want the product
So
to look like.
so just a question here, like
Yeah,
between the OEM and the ODM
yeah,
route that you're talking about, you guys had to go to the ODM because you
yeah,
had a unique design that you wanted to bring to the market,
yes.
and you it was essentially something that didn't exist before.
Yes, so we wanted a mix of certain features which we
Yeah.
felt
Hmm.
would be solving a particular customer pain point. So not
Hmm.
giving the high end performance.
Even if some
Yeah.
elements of it did exist, we did reach out to them to specifically create some, like
So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, kind of
the
how it works is like, let's say the internals of the hair dryer is a lot of products, like a
yeah.
heater, right? A heater element is common across most hair dryers. It's just a
So
1400-watt heater, and
Yeah.
that can be replaced. So there's components that can be used. For example, the buttons and switches can be reused from an existing product that is
Yeah.
already there. You don't really need to,
Yeah.
get a new
yeah, you don't
one
need to customize a
Yeah.
specifically
mold on
done.
that. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. So you can
Okay.
you can mix and
Got
match,
it.
but then to match those specific attachments in that form factor, we had to we had to open some plastic molds and
Okay.
do some
Got
PCB
it.
development in order
Got it.
to sort of get it to market. Yeah,
Got it. Got it.
yeah,
So clear on that, the pain point and why you wanted to sort of combine those value propositions into one
yes,
lightweight product and you went to the ODM route. Let's put a pin into that because
yep,
there's two things that I want to further deep dive into, right? So
sure.
you spoke about idea validation, and the second thing you spoke about is actually developing the product, right? So
Hmm.
first, on idea validation, how did you go about doing that, right? Was it sort of just a Google form that you sent to like your WhatsApp groups, or was it some other process that was unique and interesting that people could learn from?
Why did you take it? It was actually just a
it's
Google
it's
form and
just
friends.
it
Yeah.
was Google form. We did reach
Yeah.
out to friends, but
Yeah.
honestly, the most amount of validation we got was when we used to meet people in person. So
Hmm.
Okay.
of course we send it on the form, but honestly, you get a form, you get so many forms. I don't know how much
Hmm.
of your heart you put into those forms when you answer things.
Hmm.
So we both have like a very close group of friends, respectively. We send it
Hmm.
out there. Whenever we meet them, we ask them 10 questions. And at that time, they have no idea we are really thinking about this. So they are
Hmm.
like, yeah, I think I would like this to be in my product. So, because I feel if the user persona is so clear to us, we
Yeah.
have those 10, 15 women in front of us who are ready to tell us, give us their time, that what they want. So we started with them. And Google
Hmm.
Form, of course, gave us a lot of validation on the things that women consider are important. But
Hmm.
speaking face to face to women like
Hmm.
the persona that we had in mind was the
Hmm.
most helpful because
Hmm.
those women were able to actually tell us, like, for example, I never used a diffuser before, but we spoke to four or five of them and they
Hmm.
said that of course diffuser is a must for us because, like, I don't want to be spending so much money and not getting that out of my product.
Hmm.
Something like the color of it actually came from someone else because I liked another color, and I think from the Google
Yeah,
form
yeah.
around 80% chose the color we
The
had, and
champagne
in
color.
the
Yeah.
closed friend group also most of them chose this color.
Hmm.
So that's when you see that, okay, it's not just me, right? I'm not creating
Yeah.
this for
Yeah.
Yeah.
myself, we are creating it
Yeah.
for a bigger group of people. So all of these things, because
Hmm.
I feel you can say that color looks are secondary, but you never know. When you see three options, this thing strikes to you and you pick that up.
Hmm.
Yeah. So essentially, like, if we were to sort of sum that up, I think we did it two ways.
Yeah.
One was the Google Forms,
Yeah.
which gives you like some quantitative insights, maybe
Yeah.
options about color, form
Yeah.
factor, sorry,
uh
maybe color
Attachments.
attachments, like more
Yeah.
explicit things you can tell by that. But about usability, ergonomics, and features, I think like a more,
Comes from the
yeah,
face
like
to
a
face.
focus group or like talking to people and showing them a product to see what they would improve.
Hmm.
Yeah,
We actually got a lot of critical feedback from the
yeah,
friends on the
yeah.
first prototype that we
Mm.
had. And
Hmm.
it was honest at that point in time because we hadn't invested enough money that, okay, we have to go with that prototype, the one that we
Hmm.
had first. So we showed it to them. They really critiqued it like left, right, and center that this is wrong,
Okay.
this is wrong, this is wrong.
Yeah,
So I think
Okay.
having those people around you is really important
yeah.
who will give you honest and
Um,
true feedback on your product. Like not just give
Hmm.
you validation that yeah, this is amazing. Just
definitely.
give you
Hmm.
honest feedback. That's really
Hmm.
important.
Right. So my take from this is that in when it comes to idea validation,
Yeah.
yes, you can do like kind of like the secondary research, or you can get people to fill a form. But
Yeah.
Hmm.
where the real value add comes from is actually being in front of people, getting their unfiltered raw feedback,
Hmm.
and not only does that help you understand those, let's say, blind spots that you might not see as a founder yourself,
Hmm.
but what it also tells you is that what the market wants is not always what you would want, right? Like as you said
Right.
with
Yes,
the color
exactly.
example, right? So you
Yeah.
might think the design of the color is all right, but when you see the market,
Yeah.
80% of people are choosing something else.
Yeah.
So I
100%.
think,
Yeah.
No, also like it kind of makes sense to make sure that your focus group is as close to your, okay, when you're developing an idea, you don't
Hmm.
exactly
hmm,
know what your customer is going to look like. You have a broad
hmm,
idea, but
hmm,
you try to hit it to be as random and as wide as your target customer can be.
hmm,
So that's something that's also very important because so I sent it to my mom and she's like, I'm not going to pay $100 for a hair dryer. I mean, my $20 hair
yeah,
dryer works just fine. At the same time,
yeah,
if you're maybe in the 20 to 30 age range, you
hmm,
see other people online on TikTok and Instagram using a Dyson, you're probably more
hmm,
affable to spending, more than $100 on a hair dryer.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Send it to as
as a wide
wide as an audience it can be. Get very diverse feedback because you never know. And we'll get to it later. We didn't know who our persona
yeah,
was. After our
yeah.
Kickstarter, we were shocked to see
yeah.
who our persona was.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. No, that's very interesting. Like, how you even get to that focus group and who to focus on amongst
Hmm.
the different types of
Yeah.
consumers, right?
Yeah.
So, coming back to, the journey that you guys were talking about. So, I validate this idea through close friends,
Yeah.
through surveys.
Hmm.
You show them a prototype and you get real-time feedback.
Hmm.
Um, at what point are you like, okay, this is something that we got to scale now. We're ready to get into manufacturing. And my question there is on that ODM angle,
Yes.
because you're essentially competing against a global giant like Dyson, whose average price for the similar kind of product is like $600, right?
Yeah.
Roundabout.
Well,
Uh,
okay. Hmm.
yeah. So my question there is like, what is the price differential between your product and a Dyson today in the market, and where have you found those efficiencies in reducing the cost?
Okay, I think I'll take that.
Yeah.
I can
Hmm.
take that question. So we don't think that we're competing with Dyson, more like we can't.
Okay.
We think
Okay.
that for those, in the US every year, 25 million hair dryers are sold, which is a very large amount. And
Hmm.
those are across consumer and enterprise verticals, right? Now, the customer persona who's going to go purchase a Dyson is an evolved customer who's willing to spend that amount of money on their hair and the product. But
And
at
it's
this,
top
yeah, like the
0.1%.
top few percentage points of the whole category as a customer. At
Hmm.
the same time, there are people who are purchasing 20, 40, 50, $60 hair dryers from drugstores or Walmart or any of those other larger retailers. And the idea is those customers can pay a little bit more for a much more superior product. So you can think of
Hmm.
it in two ways. And that's kind of what we're pushing for because you spend a little bit more, you get a product that doesn't damage your hair. You can have multiple attachments to style your hair. Because the high-end customer, like the Dyson market or the Dyson customer, is something that has been created. This customer did not exist previously because there was no product to peg this to. So that customer
Hmm.
persona is not likely to purchase a product that is significantly lower in cost or a new entrant in the market which only has a single SKU. That's kind of how we think
I
How
about
we
see.
it.
think.
Yeah,
And we also feel like the people who are going to purchase Dyson are the same people who are going to go purchase your luxury bags, right?
yeah.
They purchase it
Hmm.
for the status that comes with that product. And
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong in that. Even I have a Dyson. I wanted a Dyson. And there is really nothing wrong in that. But we did not even begin to target that market to begin with because we know that if they have $500 of discretionary income at that point, they are going to go buy that
Yeah.
Dyson. We are not going to
Hmm.
give them the happiness that the Dyson will give. But
Hmm.
for the people who are not yet willing to spend that much on a hairdryer,
More value
Hmm.
conscious.
more
Yeah.
value conscious, people who are happy with a $40 or a $50 hairdryer that right now, they are the ones who can upgrade their existing ones
Hmm.
to something which
Yeah.
is more powerful, we are in no way going to say that we are as good as a
Yeah.
Dyson, we are the best ones out there, but we are something a lot better than the ones that they're using right
We
now.
can come
I see.
close in
Yeah,
terms of performance, but I mean, of course, there's a difference.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you found like your play or go to market strategy to be not to compete with in the premium segment, but
Mhm.
rather create a mass premium segment where you're like, hey, you're buying these 40-50 dollar dryers which are
Yeah.
damaging
Yeah,
your hair, pay a little more and get something that's actually good,
Yeah.
functional,
exactly.
lightweight. So
Definitely.
creating that mass premium segment in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah, we,
That's
we
a
we
very
went for
smart.
that big gap which is there
Yeah.
in the
We felt there was
market.
a gap. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I
and
mean, there was stuff here, there was stuff here, there was nothing in the middle. I mean, there are products in the middle, but
Yeah.
nothing that
nothing
could,
that kind
yeah,
of you say that, oh yeah, this product fits into the
yeah,
middle category. There is no
Hmm.
brand that
yeah,
comes in your mind
yeah.
offhand. There are a
Okay.
lot of OEM brands on Amazon,
Hmm.
but nothing
Yeah.
which is standing out. So that's where we wanted to target.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
I think the way that you guys went about it is also quite interesting, like validating the idea and then being very clear, I think, which when it comes to okay, who our target customer is, right?
Yeah.
And with that, I kind of want to come to that angle that you were talking about before, which is like your Kickstarter campaign
Hmm.
and the process of actually finding who your customer
Yeah.
is or was and where they are located. So tell us a bit about that and how you kind of got the whole process to supply these customers end to end.
Right.
Got it. Maybe I'll
Should we
start?
split it in two ways? Yeah, I can talk about
Yeah.
Kickstarter. She was the one who spoke to all the customers actually.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. But
so
I'll tell you, like, thinking about this amazing product that we can create and sell is amazing, is one thing.
Yeah,
The second thing is, where do you get the money from? Because
yeah.
to get anything produced in scale, you
yeah,
can't just get 3 or 10 or like 20 products made. You have to pay
Hmm.
upfront for a huge amount of products to be made. And
Hmm.
that's the bet we are going to take.
yeah.
That it's going to
That's
go
right.
on,
We
the
didn't want to like we could have funded it with our savings, but we felt that we should validate this in a sense that is it even worth doing? Because our friends are nice people. They say, "Wow, I'll buy this for $100, $200," but
Hmm.
our actual customers, people who we don't know, gonna pay for this. We don't know. Would they buy from a brand that's not so well established?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the whole Kickstarter
and we
idea
had
came.
already put in money,
Yeah,
the
even the
process of
product
getting the
prototype
prototype,
and
process
everything.
of getting a company, it's not something which just happened. So we had
Yeah.
invested significant money to begin with, and then the question came that, are we going to just put this money out and just put this product in the market, take the plunge, 500 pieces? And then it was his idea that let's go with a
Yeah.
Kickstarter campaign. And yeah,
Again,
we
yeah,
were
the
in.
company I'd worked for before I joined, they had run a
Yeah.
an Indiegogo campaign actually. One of the
Which is
companies I
like
worked for,
another
a similar Kickstarter
Another
crowdfunding.
crowdfunding.
crowdfunding
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
platform, right?
And they'd raised, I think, 150, $200,000. I don't know the exact amount for a
Hmm.
product. And that was super successful because it also was a very unique pain point that they were trying to solve. It was
Hmm.
a smart padlock that was used outdoors. So you could use it on your sheds, on your public properties, on,
Hmm.
say, locking your bicycle, stuff like that. There's
Hmm.
nothing that
Hmm.
existed in the market that was waterproof. So the idea kind of sort of came from that, but we didn't know how to go about the Kickstarter process. And we read online a lot on Reddit that unless you okay, I'll go take a step back on this, right? So we figured out that we wanted to validate this, which
Yeah.
Anya said. Then we wanted to do crowdfunding because we figured that that would be a good way to validate this pain point or validate the
Hmm.
product. Would
Hmm.
unknown people pay for it? And then we wanted to figure out how to launch on Kickstarter or choose Kickstarter versus Indiegogo. And we reached out to typical thing. You go on Google, Kickstarter consultant, you go online, you get on a call with them, and they're like,
Fifty
when
thousand dollars,
fifty
I
thousand US
remember, was the
dollars,
first
yeah,
quote that we got. That you're gonna pay us $50,000
Yeah.
and this consultant group, and they are
excluding ad cost.
excluding ad spend, and they are going to figure out everything for us, and
Yeah.
they're gonna make sure that we raise a brilliant campaign. So
Wait, hold
again,
on. Just taking a step back
yeah,
because
Yeah.
from the outside, as someone who's never done Kickstarter but
Yeah.
only heard about it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kickstarter is meant to help entrepreneurs raise funds.
Maybe
Right.
Which
I'll give you a bit of background. So
yeah,
every
yeah.
day, I don't know the correct number, but there's thousands of people who start a Kickstarter
Yeah.
project.
Okay.
Thousands of these projects start. If they receive funding in the first 24 hours, they're going to go ahead.
Yeah.
Because the algorithm is going to push the
Push
ones
you.
which
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which are actually getting
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
attention. But we realized we can't just do that. We have to be very well prepared before we actually come on Kickstarter. And how do
Hmm.
you be prepared about it is you get people to know more about what this product is, that it's going to be launching on Kickstarter, and
Hmm.
this is something which is coming up. So people are on a
Yeah.
lookout for your product.
Yeah.
Because if we don't end up getting, the people to pledge the amount, if we don't get up getting funded in the first few hours, we're just going to be lost. It's like all
Mm.
of the effort we have done to make this campaign work is wasted. So we
Mm.
looked out for consultants because someone told us that, there are people who have the formula right. There are people who are going to help you immensely. And we did find the correct people, but of
Mm.
course, through a lot of sieving. So this first person who we spoke to quoted us
Yeah.
around $50,000.
Hmm.
They're great consultants. They work for good brands. So if you have the budget for it, if you
Yeah.
plan to raise 1 million or a few, hundred
Mm.
thousands, go for them. They're gonna do a great job for you. They're gonna make sure your campaign is successful.
We didn't have that money, so
We didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
no.
how do you solve that problem?
So we
Like,
asked them for a reference. I think
We attended
yeah,
a full
should have
call
been.
with them, and we're like, see, we are being very open with you. There is no way we can do this. Could you
mm.
please refer to someone who is in this budget? Because hey, this is not gonna work
Yeah,
for
we
us.
can't afford $50,000 plus ad spend, so it'll be close to
It's just,
100,
yeah, it's just
150,000
too much
USD.
for us.
Yeah.
Which works for people. If you put in 150x of cost, a lot of people end up getting 10x the returns.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that risk appetite at that point.
Mm.
So I think more targeted towards kind of your question, if I remember correctly, like what did you do? So as Sanya said, we talked to that guy, that consultant, and $50,000 was the quote. We talked to a few more. I went every day to look for Kickstarter consultants. You have
Yeah.
like a bunch on Fiverr as well, but they're not. I don't know how good they would be. We
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah.
it. Somehow we found our way to a consultant. Referred by the first larger company, which is a
Mm.
more a la carte option. So they guide you through a online course, and they have like weekly office hours where you can follow the course and follow the steps, and then they have office hours that instruct you on kind of how you're doing, how to go about the whole process, and then that's who we went with. Kickstarter, in its theory, is meant to be a platform that allows people to fund innovative projects, but everything has become a business. So if there are people who are more well prepared and then the level of competition is higher, you only have those select few people who are funding projects, the
Mm.
customers on Kickstarter. So
Mm.
so the levels got to a point where the whole process has become very professionalized, and therefore if
Yeah.
you were to go in without having any professional help, it's close to impossible to raise money. I think only about 30-40% of projects that are listed even get funded, and
Mm.
I was just searching, so that's about 30 something percent, in the high 30s. But
Mm.
So
projects that raise more than 10K are significantly below that, because most projects on Kickstarter raise below 10,000 US dollars. Yeah.
and the reason
Mm.
for that is because if, for example, you have a campaign for $10,000 and you ended up raising $8,000,
Yeah. The
and
campaign's
if
unsuccessful.
if
Yeah.
you didn't
Yeah.
meet
You
that
wouldn't
goal,
get the money,
you
right?
Yeah.
wouldn't get a single
Yeah.
dollar. So
Yeah.
we a little
Yeah, there are tricks to
yeah,
it which you would not know if you're doing it for the first time. So I think maybe
Mm.
if we were to run another campaign, we would know a lot more things on how to go about it. But since you're doing it for the first time, either you have a friend who knows how the process works,
yeah.
then go about it. But if you want to know a little bit more about that, maybe I'll take a minute to answer. Like how the Kickstarter campaign really works is it's like a simple marketing funnel. So
Mm.
you run campaigns on a landing page, which is a pre-launch landing page. This is exactly how everyone does it. The small variations, that's kind of
Yeah.
how everyone does it. And then you gotta get customers to put in a deposit to show that they're interested. Like it can be $1, it can be 50 cents. And so these are your groomed,
Qualified
your qualified
customers.
or like qualified audiences, yeah, qualified customers. And so then when your campaign goes live, you give them like a early bird discount for them to purchase it, so you can get across that initial goal that you set. 3,000,
Mm.
5,000, $10,000, whatever goal you've set. And then everything after that, Kickstarter will sort of push.
Multiply, and
Yeah,
you're going to get organic reach and stuff.
yeah. They'll push
So
it
that's what we did before we went live on Kickstarter. We had around 100 people, 100ish people,
more.
100 200 people, I think.
Yeah, 200 people, I think.
Yeah, who had given us that $1 deposit, who we
Yeah.
felt like are ready to buy this product. They have liked how the product looks initially, and that became our starting point. And we launched the campaign before we reached a big number, because we really wanted to go ahead with it. So we
Yeah.
did a campaign.
Mm.
Our campaign was set to be in a way that we can invest the initial MOQ that we had set with our suppliers, and that's where we were able to successfully fund that. Of course, when you set up a campaign, you hope that, okay, realistically I need maybe 10K to do this. I hope that God blesses me and I get 50K. It didn't happen with us.
Mm.
We just reached the bare minimum goal
I
of
think it
it,
is about 16, 17,000
16,000
Singapore
Singapore
dollars.
dollars.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that money was enough for us to
Get over the
to
rope. I
get
mean,
over
we had
the
to put
rope.
in money of ourselves, but
Yeah.
it was enough validation that we could And
bring
people are
this
liking the
product to
product,
life.
unknown people are purchasing it.
We
Yeah.
could push the green button on that first
Yeah,
big
first
order,
order.
Exactly.
Yeah.
first commercial order. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that order, we actually understood that our persona was a lot different than what we had initially
Mm.
planned. We got
Hmm.
80% of our orders from the US, and they were women. Most of them were women. A lot of
Hmm.
them were men who were buying it for their girlfriends or like wives.
Wives, yeah.
Hmm.
And
Older people, right? Yeah.
yeah, and the funny thing was that we were initially pushing this campaign towards younger girls, towards like women around 25,
Yeah.
30,
Yeah.
35. Funnily, like around 60% ish came from women within the age group of
45.
40
Hmm.
to 50. So they were middle-aged
Interesting.
women who were actually trying to upgrade their existing hair dryer, and
Hmm.
we were just shocked that that was the biggest chunk of our audience. And
Hmm.
we were only able to understand this because when we looked at the report, we just thought like, let's just see
Hmm.
how the users look like. Because when you get
Hmm.
an order, you don't want to see who it's coming from. You're just
Yeah.
excited that, hey, I got an order. I don't
Yeah.
know this
Especially at the
person.
start,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Every order is like, yay, it's a cheer
Yeah.
for
It's like
us.
a dopamine rush in your head. Like, yeah, one more, one
Yeah.
Yeah.
more, one more. Yeah.
So, but finally, maybe we just got some genius in
Hmm.
our brain to be like, just go see who your audience is. And we were
Yeah.
shocked. We were like, okay, so that's a new discovery that it's women of middle age who are more keen to buy
Hmm.
this than young
Yeah.
girls of like 20, 25 age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
and yeah, I think that also came because I don't even remember, but a lot of the customers who were reaching out to us to ask questions, we were sort of they would tell us in one way. I don't want to go into typical conversations, but like I'm sort of
yeah.
older and I don't understand how to use this. Can you tell me before I purchase it? And so the actual conversation, Sane was the one doing it. So
Yeah,
like,
they were
yeah,
really,
Hmm.
really nice. And, it's such a
they're
sweet
older
thing
people.
because it's the first time our product is going to people who we have no idea who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are just sitting here in this
Yeah.
room, and like
Thousands of
thousands
miles
of
away.
women
Yeah.
Yeah,
are like, not thousands, like
Yeah.
hundreds of women are just
thousands of
opening
miles
it
away. Yeah,
miles away.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they just like a very sweet people who just send you a question that, hey, the product looks lovely. How do I use this? How do I do
Yeah.
How do I
this?
curl my hair
So
and stuff
I,
like
I
that?
would just send them like, personalized videos that, hey, you can do this and you can do that. And they're
Yeah.
very, very open to, understanding more ways where they can
Hmm.
get value from this product. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I think
That's
that was a surprise for us. And they have been so helpful, like a few of the initial customers, in telling us more about the product, in telling us where the confusion happens so we can make more content to solve that for them.
hmm.
So yeah, like your initial group of 100 orders, I think is the most important people because
Hmm.
they are the ones who are going to give you an outsider perspective. They
Hmm.
don't know us. They're not going to, be like,
Yeah.
you
Not gonna
guys are
sugarcoat
nice, we'll do this
anything.
for
Yeah,
you. They just are going to give us very nice feedback.
yeah.
So be
Hmm.
close to those 100 people is something I'll say.
That's a great advice, I think, for anyone starting out. Because we hear this across many different consumer product categories,
Hmm.
whereas like a product is launched in a market, and the manufacturers or the founders, they
Mhm.
intend it to be used for X,
Yeah.
but it actually ends up being used in consumption occasion Y, and
Mhm.
that becomes the main business, right? So even in food, for example, I was reading this story about oat milk and Oatly, right, which is one of
Right.
Yeah.
the pioneers of oat milk. At first, the product really didn't take off till it was adopted by coffee shops, and then oat and coffee, because it went really well, that
Yeah.
sort of became a huge driver for the whole industry in general for oat milk, right? And
Hmm.
today you
Yeah.
see the main driver for oat milk consumption is actually coffee shops.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you never know how it's going to go, and I think it's
Mhm.
such great learning for anyone listening to this
Right.
who's wanting to start off, that just put the product out in the market, and
Yeah.
that's when, from those first 100 people, you're going to know who the consumer is and why they're using your product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, very true.
100%.
That's
That's so
Yeah.
true.
Actually, that coffee shop example gives me another thing I should probably quote as
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
one. It's a really good example. So another reason I feel why coffee shops like oat milk is because they charge $1, $1.50 for it, and then the cost of
Hmm.
that oat milk is only 20 cents. So they're able to increase their profit margin by selling it. Correct?
Hmm.
Correct. That
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah.
right? That kind of
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I make oat milk. I mean, $5 box of oat milk, and they can make maybe 20 coffees out of it. So they're able to
Yeah.
get more money out of it. So it makes more sense for that. We actually sent a lot of people who bought our product initially, maybe
Not
like
a lot of
maybe a
you.
dozen,
Yeah.
maybe a dozen were
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
salons or like salon owners. And
Hmm.
so we actually reached out to a lot of them, and then some of them were like, "Hey, our customers, I'm using this on my customers' hair, and
They really
yeah,
like
they really
it.
like it. Can I like buy it in bulk from you and
Hmm.
then sell it
Hmm.
over to them?" So we tried that as well. That offline sort of split. So
Hmm.
your the touch point to your customer selling the product is better because there's a human trying to sell it. Same
Hmm.
logic. So
There's
uh,
that trust element.
Yeah.
and they also see it being used rather than just a video
Hmm.
online or a
Yeah.
listing
Yeah.
online.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we
Yeah.
did that as well, and we still do that with the initial few people who bought it. I
Yeah.
know people talk about being streamlined in your growth process, but we were desperate to
Yeah.
sell in the initial few
Yeah. Yeah.
initial few months, right? So we're like, sure, dude, like why don't not a discount code because it'll be difficult to manage inventory for us, but why don't we give you a voucher? Like anytime you sell one, you'll get a cut. Like it's an affiliate program sort of thing.
Affiliate
So
marketing program.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
an
So
affiliate.
really, there's one woman who started our affiliate program.
Yeah, she
Like
sold
it's
like
just solely for her that we even got this idea that we can do
yeah,
it.
yeah. We didn't know how to build
Hmm.
affiliate. Like we didn't know how to build an affiliate section on our websites, and then we went and looked at it, and then
And
we
that really brings me back to this fact that, as a
yeah,
business owner, you always wait to be 100% prepared before you put your product out. You
Yeah.
want to set up all your SOPs, you want to have
Yeah.
your product
Yeah.
sorted, your customer sorted. But the truth is, you will never be 100% prepared.
yeah,
So just go
Exactly.
out, launch it at 80%. You will figure out 100 things along the way. Like
hmm,
Hmm.
so many things that we do today have happened after we have launched because we
yeah.
had no idea that we would even move in that direction.
Figured it along the way.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
things will just keep on happening. Just put it out. Like if you have
Yeah.
thought of something, I think just put it out. You
Yeah.
will figure out. You have that power to figure
Yeah.
it out once it's out there in the
yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. Yeah.
No, go for it. No, even when we were deciding on what product to build, right? I mean, I won't go into depth, but we had a few ideas, and so I told Tanya that so I mean initially I told her that we should do this together because we have very complementary skill sets, and then we'd be able
Yeah.
to do everything internally rather than outsource it. Some
Yeah.
simple stuff like even filing our tax receipts, like our tax was done by her, and then
Yeah.
the product
Okay.
sourcing is done by me. So like we kind of do everything internally
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
that we can minimize costs. Things add
Yeah.
up.
Just
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
the whole motive is to save costs.
Save costs.
So we
Yeah,
just learn
we do everything
everything. Yeah.
internally and we try to learn things on the way. And like yeah, I was saying, even when before we confirmed that this is a hero product that we're going to develop first, we had a
Hmm.
couple of ideas. There were more than one pain point. I won't go
Hmm.
into that because that's something we're developing
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there were more pain points that we were looking at, and we were trying to figure out which one to develop first. I told her that I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm gonna register a company because I feel if we sit on this for very long, we're not gonna do anything
Yeah.
about it. So I
Yeah.
went and I found a third party provider to help me register a private limited, and
Yeah.
then we're like we'll figure it out after that because if you're in inertia, we'll just keep sitting. We
Yeah.
won't move this ahead. Now, if I have the thing hanging on my head that I've spent $1,000 on registering a company, I think $700-800.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will have
We're
to.
gonna do something at least. We're gonna try and
Yeah.
figure out
Yeah.
something at least. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. Just start, get like
somewhere.
one step
Yeah,
going at a time, and that's gonna keep you motivated to take the next
yeah,
step, and you end up with a business, right? And
yeah.
you end up with real customers.
Hmm.
Uh, Love that story. My question here now is like you launched. I have your storyline
Hmm.
very clear, right? So
Hmm.
you validated, you spoke to people, focus groups, prototyping, iteration, Kickstarter, and then getting your first 100 customers. Uh, from that point to now, what kind of traction have you seen? Has your customer base grown? If yes, how has it grown? And is
Hmm.
it still that same customer base that was there at the start?
Yeah.
Right. Do you want? Okay,
You
I'll
can
take.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we went into this process trying to figure out how we could leverage data at every process. So we went about
Okay.
validating it at the very beginning,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what feature set we should have. Second
Yeah.
was Kickstarter because we didn't want to just dump money on something that couldn't sell. So then that was the second stage, and then the third stage was before we figured out what to do after that. We wanted to look at those Kickstarter demographics and Kickstarter information, as Sanya said.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
Kickstarter is a very US heavy business. As
Hmm.
a customer base, they have mostly American customers or North American customers, and so maybe we were biased on that in terms of how the sales went. But just overall, we felt that we needed to figure out where to sell this product because Kickstarter was global. And so looking at those Kickstarter demographics, we figured about 80%, as Sanya said previously, of our customers came from the US. And so one thing was, if we were to pick a single large market that we can sell the product to get to a point of profitability or at least unit level
Hmm.
or category level profitability,
Yeah.
we should try to do that. And second thing was we could of course start selling in Singapore, but then Singapore is a very small market, and
Yes.
then it's a also a very competitive market because you can buy everything from China directly. So for most direct to consumer brands, specifically in our segment operating in Singapore, it's very hard unless
Hmm.
you have a truly unique product. And I don't
Hmm.
know if there are enough evolved customers who would appreciate having that specific feature set at that cost
Yeah.
in Singapore. But the US is a large enough market that the
Yeah.
pond is large enough. There will be an evolved group of customers who have already purchase this product and
Yeah.
there are more customers like this who will purchase this product. So then that's kind of the
Hmm.
thing where we went for. We'll focus
Yeah.
on one market, one product for 1 year,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just keep it very clean to see if we can learn from this process to see how products can be sold. And so
Hmm.
as luck would have it, we thought we would do the Shopify route because we didn't. I don't want to do an app. I had sold products on Amazon for my company previously that I was working for.
Hmm.
They take a large cut of the overall product,
FBA
yeah,
fees or
the
like
FBA
just
fee,
Amazon
Hmm.
fees.
yeah, and then that really affects your profitability as a business and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
And as we told you, we were very
Yeah,
cost
yeah, we
conscious.
were very
We
cost
wanted to save
conscious.
and maximize wherever we
Yeah,
could.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it was our
Yeah.
side business, right? We were putting our savings into this.
Yeah.
Whatever came
Hmm.
in kind of went out there initially.
Hmm.
And so we figured A, 80% of our customers are in the US. Let's start selling in the US. B, we set up a Shopify store. And then we started running meta ads once the product was out.
Hmm.
And then that didn't go very well.
That was
But
basically like if someone says that you have $2,000, you want to waste it. We did
yeah,
that.
we did
We
that.
just wasted.
We
We
just
wasted money on ads.
we paid the
Woke
meta
up sad every
tax.
morning that no sale, nothing, nothing,
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
Only to
Hmm.
realize that no one is going to trust a new brand on
yeah.
Shopify. Like you can be a scam brand who has made a Shopify and people just purchase it and never get the product. The only
Hmm.
way you can get an American customer to think you are legit, you're valid, is
Initially, I would say.
initially is if you're on Amazon, because Amazon does enough screening beforehand to make
Hmm.
sure that the product, if they pay for it, will reach them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were at the wrong place trying
Initially,
to
yeah.
initially
We
at the
did
wrong
sell some, but it
we
was not
did
profitable. I mean,
not
we were
profitable
just like we were trying to figure out what to do. We were
because
tweaking our
everything
Shopify
was the
store.
same. Kickstarter,
Hmm.
everything was the same.
Yeah.
How come today on Shopify nothing is working out?
Yeah, I mean, people are willing to put in a deposit for the product before the product even existed, and now it
Hmm.
exists and we can ship in a day. But how
They are
come
not
nobody's
buying
buying
it.
it? So that kind of was the logic. But we figured out
Hmm.
how to sell in the US. Now, um, then we realized at this point we were shipping out of a warehouse in Hong Kong, by the way.
Yeah.
So we found a warehouse
Yeah.
in Hong Kong to ship our products for
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah. So,
Um,
so sorry, just before
yeah,
we go ahead, right? I had
Yes.
this question, but since you mentioned it now,
yeah.
let's get
Yeah.
into this. Like, can you also, while you answer this question, explain how your supply chain today works, right? Because you have
Okay.
most of your customers sitting in US, you guys
Yeah,
are in Singapore.
yeah,
Yeah.
Presumably, you're sourcing a lot of stuff from China as well. I don't
yeah.
Yeah.
know.
All from
How
China.
does the supply chain work?
Okay, so I do supply chain, so I will answer that question. I'll try my best. So initially, when we started off, we did not know how to fulfill the orders when the
Okay.
Kickstarter campaign went live. But then the consultant that we were working with helped us, and they had a few contacts. We didn't actually end up using any of theirs, but we found a cheaper alternative to one of the contacts that they gave us.
Hmm.
Um, there's a company called Next Smart Ship. I can mention it. It's very, very well known now. They help.
They are
Um,
very,
they
very
focus on
efficient
yeah, yeah,
and they
yeah.
are really good people if you want to work with them. Yeah.
Specifically, they work with Kickstarter funded companies because they are based out of Hong Kong, and then they have very
Hmm.
the way that they work is you can directly update a sheet into you can update your shipping list there for whatever SKU needs to go to which
Hmm.
customer and across
Yeah.
different countries. So it's like a forwarding company, and I think it was founded by a couple of people who had raised money in Kickstarter, and they found a pain point that it was very difficult to fulfill. Um,
Hmm.
and so kind of we went with them, we found them online, and then they were also supporting us to ship to the US or other countries when we were running the Shopify store. That's kind
So
of
it's like a
yeah,
Okay.
MCF multi-channel fulfillment where we just go, we have our units sitting at their warehouse in Hong Kong. So they go from China to Hong
Hong
Kong
Kong.
and from Hong Kong to wherever a customer
Yeah.
orders it. So it has gone to
Hmm.
India, it has gone to Singapore, it has gone
Wow.
to Thailand, it's gone to Greece,
Australia,
Australia,
Greece,
Bulgaria,
really random places.
really
Because
random
Awesome.
Kickstarter,
places.
like, yeah, it
Yeah.
funded in really
So
weird
it
places.
works.
Awesome.
It really
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, and they were
So
pretty good. We've had no complaints pretty much.
Hmm.
They've been super helpful, but initially, like, but then you have long lead times, right? Like you have say a week
Hmm.
long
Because
lead
it's going
time.
to Hong Kong and then to
yeah.
the
Yeah,
rest of
no,
the
we
world.
store everything in Hong Kong, but from Hong Kong to say the US when you get a single order is very difficult.
Hmm.
So at that point, we were not able to make money, and then we weren't profitably. Then we were like, I'm like, Sane, why don't we just try Amazon? Because I'd done Amazon previously. I had worked with an external consultant with the company I worked for previously, and then kind of got in touch with them and try to get their help to commercial to get us on Amazon. At the same time, as luck would have it, Amazon reached out to us
In
in
Singapore.
Singapore because they saw our Kickstarter campaign,
Hmm.
and they reached out to us saying that they had this unique thing called global selling, specifically for some countries in Southeast Asia, where they actually help support local brands to go overseas and sell overseas. And so
Hmm.
since we were registered in Singapore, we could get an account management service free for a year, and they would help us get
with
everything set
everything
up.
set up. Yeah.
Yeah. So they really, I mean, they reached out to us. It was a random
Yeah.
email in my inbox from Amazon Singapore, and then
We had a sales associate or
over
like an
there,
account manager over there who was really helpful for everything. Even the consultants we were working on with side, we weren't letting them do anything. They were guiding us through the process. So
Hmm.
we had a very, very solid support network
hmm,
which was telling us that this is the right thing to do. And initially you won't feel that, because going into Amazon is not easy. It's not that today you want to sell on Amazon, you just open an account and you do it.
there's a lot of things, a lot of
You
processes in
have to
place.
be
Yeah,
compliant with a lot of things. You have to make sure that there's a trademark, there's a valid trademark of your name. You have to make sure you have all of those documentation sorted, which is not straightforward. It's going to take you a lot of process. So you have to be really patient
yeah.
into putting your Amazon out there. And even when your Amazon is out there, no one considers to buy it from an account which has no ratings, no
No
stars,
reviews, no
nothing.
rating. So there's this
Hmm.
processes to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so we worked with like the account manager, as Hanya said, and then the Amazon consultant, which was more focused on ads, I would say. But the
Yeah.
account manager was actually helping us on the back end, whatever stuff we needed, whatever documentation we needed.
Hmm.
We went
Hmm.
about the trademark process, what all documents we needed for Amazon, and then we sort of sent a large shipment to
FBA
FBA. So
warehouse.
yeah, so how Amazon really works is they have warehouses of their own, so you can either ship
Hmm.
it independently, which you can, but it takes a longer lead time and it's not prime rated because you can't deliver it in say 72
Yeah.
hours of the order.
Yeah.
Or you can put your product into an Amazon warehouse. They distribute it between different warehouses, and then when anyone purchases it, they pack and fulfill for you. That's kind of what most people
Yeah.
do.
So
Yeah,
at the current day, our supply chain is very straightforward. We don't involve next smart ship. We don't involve anyone in Hong Kong. So our product goes straight from China. It sea ships to US FBA warehouse of Amazon.
Hmm.
And from
Hmm.
Amazon, it goes to the Amazon customers through the Prime route.
yeah,
And for
Hmm.
non-Amazon customers, we also have a facility called MCF, multi-channel
yeah.
fulfillment, where from the
Okay.
FBA warehouse itself, we can sell it to anyone else. So it
So,
is
yeah.
Hmm.
pretty
And
streamlined.
the logistics of that, like let's say the non-Amazon sales,
Yeah.
that also Amazon fulfillment services do for you, and they
Yes.
Yes.
charge
We
you.
pay them. We
Yeah, I
pay
mean,
them
they're
an
basically a
extra.
shipping company at that
Yeah.
point.
They.
So it's very
Hmm.
clean because all of our inventory can be in one location. We don't need to
Hmm.
split it up, and so our costs are very optimized. So we ship it
Hmm.
one shot to Amazon, Amazon's warehouse,
Yeah.
and then either the order comes in through Shopify, we fulfill it that way, or through
Hmm.
Amazon, that's automatic. So then
And the
that's kind of
Hmm.
most important thing that comes out of this whole thing is that your product is Prime rated.
yeah,
And with Prime tag, it
Hmm.
becomes really easy for a customer to buy
yeah,
it. They get special
Hmm.
discounts. They are able to get it in a day or two.
yeah,
So that really increases, I feel, the trustability, or like, just the fact that you're a legitimate seller
mm,
and
Hmm.
Amazon is going to
yeah,
take care of all of those things. It is a little costly, but I think for
yeah.
initial small brands like us, you get the worth out of it.
Yeah, I mean, for
Hmm.
if you're a very small brand, I think for larger brands, a lot of them do. I think independent seller-based shipping. I
Yeah,
don't know what
something
the
Yeah.
around
term is
that, but
called, but I think at our scale, we only have a single SKU, so that
Yeah.
kind of works
it
pretty.
really
Hmm.
simplifies your
Yeah,
supply
very
chain in a lot of
streamlined
ways.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That no, that sounds like a great value proposition, and yeah, especially if it's just two of you running it,
Yeah,
you don't kind of have the bandwidth to hire many people or
yeah,
look
yeah.
at very
Yeah.
complex
Nor the money. Yeah,
supply chains, right? So today if like I run a brand, right,
yeah,
whether that's in electronics, whether that's apparel,
yeah.
food,
Hmm.
what are the few things that I need to have in order to get into this sort of Amazon FBA program?
Okay.
You want to do?
Yeah,
Can-
sure. So I think if, for example, you need to be really clear about where you're going to sell. If you're selling it on Amazon US and you're a seller from Singapore or any of the authorized
Hmm.
countries, you first need to be very clear on the taxation policies. So the way it
Hmm.
works for us is that we can be based in Singapore, we're going to pay tax in Singapore, but we are selling our products in US. And that's because there is an internal agreement. Now, for a
Hmm.
lot of countries, this might not happen, that you have to pay taxes in US. So you have to really sort out the compliance side of it first.
Hmm.
Second, a very, very important thing is a trademark. You cannot sell a product in US without a US registered trademark. We had a
For your
Singapore
brand, yeah.
for your brand. We had a Singapore registered trademark at first, but
Hmm.
that doesn't help. We have to be registered on US. What is the website? UST or
USPTO, yeah.
USPTO. You have to get a lawyer. You have to get that sorted because that's a very, very important piece of document you need to sell in the
Hmm.
US.
Hmm.
And another thing is that
Certification. Yeah.
certification for any, but like that's really
That's
specific to
specific to
electronics.
products. No, actually
Mm.
for
Actually, for
even
healthcare
yeah,
also,
CPG
for
products, yeah, you might need.
supplements or anything which is, like food related, you need to have all of the certifications in place, because that is a proof that you have to submit to Amazon. Amazon wouldn't
Mm.
be selling a product that's not
Yeah.
certified. So getting all of these compliance things are really important. And one key
Mm.
advice I can tell anyone is that if you're a startup who's just, beginning to sell online, have a friend or have someone who's a lawyer, because the little things that they can help you with
Hmm.
is so important. Because initially we tend to ignore the importance of having a lawyer, but having supply contracts set, having all of these documentation set, having
Mm.
your trademark set, you can't do this alone. If
Yeah.
you're a lawyer you can, but if you have the same qualifications as we do, you can't.
That was unfortunately a skill we did not have internally. Otherwise, almost
Mm.
everything else, video, the
Yeah,
image
Yeah.
so
product development, we did internally. We
I
didn't need to
would
outsource
personally
it.
Yeah.
say just be friends with a lawyer.
Yeah.
They can really help you solidify a lot of those base skills which initially
Mm.
you ignored, but they are really important.
So to summarize what
Mm.
Sanya said, what was your first thing?
Compliance
Compliance
for
in terms of
taxation,
taxation,
Taxation.
trademark,
Trademark.
trademark.
so
Global US trademark.
US
US trademark is,
USPTO
or like
trademark,
more likely the countries you're selling in. I
the
think,
countries you're
yeah,
selling in, yeah, really country
US,
specific.
So when it comes to trademark, I mean, just this is a
Yeah,
more of a noob
yeah.
question, but because we're on
yeah,
this, I'll ask this.
No, we're
yeah,
also
When it
yeah,
comes
noobs.
to yeah, when it comes to trademark, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I know there's a few kinds of trademarks. So there's country specific trademarks. There's a
yeah.
US Patent and Trademark Office,
yeah.
Hmm.
and there is like if I just directly want to apply for a global trademark, is there a way to do that and make it more efficient?
I don't want to give any legal advice because I might not know enough about it. But
Yeah,
I remember I was liaising with the lawyer. Basically, what we needed to get was the word mark. So
yeah.
our name,
Is get
Vayu.
why? Oh,
Yeah, right. That's another story, right? Yeah. So Vayu, we tried trademarking Vayu, but we
Yeah.
didn't trademark the name till we started selling in the US, right? And so our
Mm.
name was Vayu, but you can't. We couldn't trademark Vayu because someone already had a very similar sounding name.
it wasn't the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
spelling. It
yeah. It was
just
Mm.
sounded
sounded the
like
name.
why
Yeah,
you.
you exactly.
So
So yeah, so
Wow, that's complex.
going back, sorry, just want to clarify how
Yeah.
I'm answering your question, right? So, I'm not sure if you can have a trademark globally. I think it costs a lot more money. I think you have to register in one country first and then sort of apply in different
yeah,
countries wherever you want to do it because there's a global like United Nations agreement for it. But
Hmm.
don't quote me on that because we
Yeah.
we only did it. We only went through the process because we wanted to sell in the US. For that, you need a word mark minimally.
USPTO word mark.
USPTO word mark
Yeah,
registration, I
something
would
like
call
that.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you need to find a lawyer, and there's a lot who support like Amazon specific trademark registration because that's something you need
Hmm.
because Amazon doesn't want a situation where there are two people selling under the same brand, and then
Hmm.
like they
There's a
copycat.
dispute.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
yeah,
dispute. So like owning that word mark is important.
Hmm.
Um, and you need
yeah,
to submit like your product photos with that particular word mark. So there's this, yeah. So that's kind of how you need to go about it. But
Hmm.
I think, yeah. So Sanya's point was like first was compliance, second was trademark. So you need to apply for a trademark if you're selling on Amazon in the country that you're selling in, and
yeah.
then third is
Hmm.
certifications. And for us on the
Non-negotiable, I
yeah on the
think.
electronic side, you can't sell without appropriate certification. So you need certification for the plug. Since a hairdryer is a product that can accidentally fall into the bathtub and then electrocute someone, there's like safety
Oh wow.
Labels.
labels and there's
That's
Yeah.
safety
yeah,
like plugs
Yeah.
in place so that that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's those are the
yeah.
three things.
Just be
Yeah,
very careful on all of these things, because the truth is that people buy these products, and I hope nothing ever goes wrong. But if something does go wrong, you have to always be prepared for the
yeah,
consequences. So
Hmm.
I think Amazon is just being steady and upfront and just preparing you
yeah.
to be ready for that.
Would also make sense because why Amazon was better than Shopify for us is also because people know that Amazon has some degree of credibility and the products on
Yeah.
Amazon have gone through some checks and balances in order to
Hmm.
be listed there and
Yeah,
continue to be listed
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, got it. So my main takeaway from this is that like there's a lot of layers to this,
yeah.
because people I think oversimplify e-commerce. They're like, oh yeah, I have this brand, I can just put it on Amazon
And
and
it'll fly
sell
off
it,
the
or
shelves and everything.
yeah. But there's so many these nuances that go in, and I think it's really great that you guys have laid it out for anyone listening to this, because a lot of people want to create brands today, but they don't actually know what goes behind, right? So there's
Right.
more
yeah,
accelerated learning from there. I've understood your supply chain. I've understood that your core market right
Hmm.
now is US, fulfilled
yeah.
by Amazon. But my other question when I was preparing for this interview, and Adhiraj, when we were speaking before as well, is like, you guys are based out of Singapore, running a business essentially in US, right?
Hmm.
How difficult is that? Like, what are some of the challenges that you encounter on a daily basis of running that sort of global business?
I think you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. I feel on days when you get great sales, it's very easy. It's like, wow,
Okay.
everything is amazing. But those days don't happen very often. Those days are just few days that have happened in our life thus far. On a lot of days, it's very challenging. And that's
Hmm.
simply because, when the US is up and buying your product, you sleep. So your day ends with opening that Amazon and seeing how your ads are performing, and your day starts with looking how your ads perform. So the biggest challenge I feel is a very personal challenge, that it affects your mood so much. It
Yeah.
affects how
Hmm.
your day goes so much that I spent this much on my ads. My ads were working. Today I got two
Yeah.
sales. I spent this much on my ads. My ads were working. I got five sales. It
Hmm.
influences how you start your day, and that can be such an important factor.
Hmm.
And okay, leaving all of this aside, it it is a big challenge because of the time difference for sure. Because sometimes you need to be up when they are up, and
Hmm.
in
To answer
in
questions, especially when the Kickstarter campaign was
yeah,
running, like we were staying
Hmm.
up very late to make sure that nothing went wrong.
you need to be
Hmm.
there for your
Um,
customer when they need it, because for a brand which says they offer 24/7 support, which we try to do and now we are able to do it also, is that if someone is calling you for an emergency and you don't take it, then that's not right?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to have
Yeah.
a bad impression about you. Another
Hmm.
thing is that ad optimization. And I say this in a way that, for example, if there's a Prime Day on and your product is selling on the Prime Day, your
Yeah.
ad spend is not going to be what you expect it to be. Because for Amazon, of course, any product you see us sponsored on is putting in money to make it visible to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, for example, at 12 noon, which is like 12 a.m. EST, you see that 12 midnight, which is 12
hmm.
a.m. EST, you see that your product has sold, for example, 2 units, and you've spent like $100 on your ads. You can tailor it when you're up to work through a certain way. But for
Hmm.
example, you didn't do that, then at 3 a.m., while you're fast asleep, your ads will go out of budget. that
And then
means
you lose sales.
that
Yeah.
means no one in the
Hmm.
US beyond their 3 p.m. will see your product up there when they
Yeah.
type hair dryer.
Yeah.
So you
Then you
leave
wake
money on the
up,
table.
we
Yeah.
leave
Yeah.
money on
Money
the
on the
table. Then
table.
you wake up at 8 a.m., you've lost 5 hours of sale, which is the peak time.
Yeah. Keep in
So
mind.
Hmm.
this is the biggest challenge in very important days where you are unable to control your ads. And I don't know if there's ways to optimize it. We are still looking for it, but that remains a big challenge for us. So
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
those tough days, we sometimes put like alarms in the middle of the night to just check it.
Yeah.
Like, to just see that,
Hmm.
hey, this looks good, this
Everything is
looks
going
good.
well or not.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just to add on to Sanya's point, I think the biggest challenge, honestly, is the time difference and the stuff that goes along with it. Apart from that, logistically, it's okay because Amazon takes a lot of that load from your shoulders to sort of manage the
Yeah.
operations and the fulfillment. But yeah, just the time difference, of course, makes it a little bit harder to
Yeah.
be up when your product is selling. Yeah.
And I know, we have talked about a lot of challenges that come along with it. I would personally say that if it was if it was so easy, everyone would be doing it. But the truth is, it's not that easy, but it's also not that difficult. If you are really passionate
Hmm.
about it, all of these problems are now not like big challenges for us. They're just a part of our lives.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
this
you learn how to
cannot be yeah,
incorporate
this
it.
can't be your deterrent from going ahead and doing something like this. It is
Hmm.
challenging, but it is also immensely rewarding,
Yeah.
to see something that you just thought of in your brain like 2 years ago, to be out there, to be with strangers, using them, giving you good reviews.
Hmm.
It's such a rewarding feeling as well. So don't take all of the things that we say are challenges to be a deterrent for you to go ahead.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
things to be cautious of, so you can not make the
Yeah.
same mistakes that we
Yeah.
did, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm very glad that you guys brought this up and you were so honest about the challenges you faced.
Yeah.
And you rightly said, right, these are not meant to be deterrents, but
Yeah.
it's just the reality of
How
how
it is.
these operations work, right? So, people, and my whole purpose of doing this podcast is to get accelerated learnings for myself and for people who want to create brands.
Yeah.
Right.
So, having heard about these challenges is super important
For
to
sure.
know what the pitfalls are, know what game you're playing and what you're
Yeah.
in for. So
Yeah.
that's super helpful. And I think you guys have personally done great, and the whole journey has been so inspiring from where you started and running this as a side hustle, and with selling in a different market and doing all the things you've done, I think it's really really commendable. And I
Those are
think
kind word.
from this
Thank you.
yeah from this podcast, I think there's great learnings. I think we're coming towards the end, but the last question that I sort of want to ask you both is, where do you see the vision for this brand, right? So you've started with this hero product, which is your hypersonic. Do you want to create a brand that serves different kinds of categories, or do you want to double down on this one thing? What's your vision broadly for this brand?
Sure. Okay. Shall I answer? Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, right. I think there's multiple ways you can look at this. When we
Yeah.
started, we were like, we think this is a good pain point. Let's commercialize it. We didn't really think about it a lot at that point. As you look at it now, what we want to do in the next say 6 months or so is to scale this one hero product to a point where we're able to get some money out of it to put into the second product that we're developing. So we are working on a second product within the same space. That solves a slightly different pain point, and then um, expand that SKU offering to see how we can grow it. Whether the question is if we would ever try offline sales or not, I can't give you a definitive answer. But the idea is that we validated that this product solves a pain point. We've sold it profitably on most months, a break even on some months. So as long as we can expand that to a point where we're sustainably driving revenue, A, B, adding new products to this in this category. We want to be at a point where we're a premium mass market like beauty electronics brand. Probably would be online first for the next few years, and then we'll see kind of how it goes from there. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you asked us this question, 2 years ago, I think one of the visions of the brand we are living right now, that we are on Amazon, we are selling this product. Maybe in the next 1 year, we want to be in a place where we have at least 2 to 3 products
Yeah.
that we are selling on Amazon, on our website,
Hmm.
and in the future, wherever it takes us.
Yeah.
We are just open. We are not willing to stop. We are willing to put in more effort, more hard work, and we just hope, all of
Yeah.
this, all
Kind
of
of.
this goes somewhere
Yeah.
someday.
Yeah.
No, like like about the SKU list, like the every company, no matter how successful or bad they are, and this is across all kind of products, even if it's a
Hmm.
software company, right?
Hmm.
Everyone has a product.
Hmm.
Pretty much. I mean, you can't start a business without you have some
Using
sort
the
of a
product.
product or yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
something. You have something, right? The difference that I see in companies that have been successful, where I've either interned or worked, is that there's ruthless optimization in terms of either how they are delivering the product, how they're selling it, or how they're serving their customers. The operational aspect of the back end is kind of where you make money. The product is only one
Hmm.
part of the picture. So want to continually, of course, improve and add new products, but also be very particular about how we're managing our costs and how we're
Hmm.
extracting money out of the business without leaving
Hmm.
anything on the table. A, B, um, for most companies across the board, the logical thing is once you see one product doing well, you launch a flurry of new products. Now, we're not funded, so we don't have the money to launch 10 new SKUs in the next year. So the idea is if 80% of my sales are going to come from 20% of my products, I only want to launch those 20% of hero products. So when we launch a SKU, we want to be very careful in terms of being at a point where we definitely think that this can sell. And you
And that's
can,
only because
yeah,
our risk appetite is a little
is a
lower
little
at this
lower
point.
because we're again putting
Hmm.
our own money into this.
Hmm.
Can't keep running Kickstarter campaigns. The lead time to launch a product with that is quite long. It's say
Yeah.
8 to 12 months. And so
Yeah.
when we do the second generation of product, we want to be of product or products. We want to be very careful in terms of kind of what we're launching so that it is indeed solving a pain point. We have a differentiator and we're able to sell it in a profitable manner. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you guys see a future wherein, like, you're rather than just bootstrapping this and funding
Yeah.
it yourself, you're going to some sort of investors, institution or angel investors, to get that scale and execute faster, or is that not a consideration
See,
for you
I'll
at all?
be I'll
Never
be
say never.
very
Yeah.
very honest with you. Of course, never say never. But we are also
Hmm.
very realistic in this, that there is no investor who's gonna put 100K or any sort of money into 2 people who
We're
are
doing this
doing this
part
on
time.
site.
Yeah.
And it's very
Hmm.
easy to say we are doing it part time, but we we put in as much time as we have into this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We don't slack at work. We work 10 hours a day. We work the rest of the time for this. We give all of our weekends to this. But to someone who's giving me their money, it's very difficult to justify this to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we are not ready to jump that ship
Yeah.
today, but that
Never
doesn't
say
mean we
never.
won't be in next few years.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
idea is we're learning a lot in the whole process about, with the internet, as Sanya said initially, like you're able to
Reach
conceptualize
so
an
many
idea, you
people.
reach so many
Yeah.
people. So we think there's still value we can create by treating this as a side hustle for now with one hero SKU, maybe expanding it to three SKUs by the end of the year. That's kind
Mm,
of where
mm.
what our target is. And then we see how to take it from there.
Yeah. But never
Yeah,
say never.
Yeah.
yeah. Never say
Things
never.
work out
And
only only when you never say never,
Yeah.
I think.
yeah, yeah. As with all the other things in your journey, I feel like
Yeah.
as you're in the market, you're doing this, you're running this operation, you will learn what works,
Yeah.
what
Yeah. Yeah.
doesn't work,
Yeah.
and you guys are very well positioned to capitalize on those opportunities. So I wish you all the best. And
Thank you
this
so much.
podcast has been a great learning, not only for myself, but I'm sure like when I put it out, when
Yeah.
people listen to this, they'll get so many in-depth insights that they can apply to their own upcoming or operational brands. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, guys,
No, thank you so
for
No,
much for
thank
having
you.
us.
Actually, I do want to say last one thing that
yeah.
if there's anyone who's starting out, initially we always think more of people, who are better than us, like, people who have reached a
Mm,
point where we want to reach.
mm,
But the truth is, we also need to see people who are in the process. So if there's
mm,
someone who's just starting out, I would say just do three things. First of all, please ask for help. If you have people around you who have been on this journey, they are more than willing to share the right contacts with you. So please ask for help. Number two, please be your own customer. If you try your product, if you know your product well, you would be in a better position to help your customers and
mm,
answer them about what potentially can go wrong, or in a way that you'll be better equipped to help your customer.
mm, mm,
And the third one, I think, is to go on even if you're not there yet. Even if you think
mm,
that you are not 100% prepared, just go on. For
mm.
your podcast, for anyone doing any business, for anyone who's applying for jobs also, just go on. Things will
Yeah,
figure out. So
Yeah.
just
yeah,
try, give it a shot. That's the
yeah,
three tips I'll give to anyone who wants to start something in life, not just a
yeah.
business, just anything.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot for, kind of laying that out and summarizing that. I think that's great advice. And your journey kind of proves that as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, after this interview is out, I hope people go visit your website, try your products, because I think what you're building is really interesting and it's very mission driven. So, yeah, all the best to you both.